So far so good. We've got filtering, we have main categorizations, we have the series across here. Now in this case, I'm showing two values, so I don't really have any series. There's nothing up in here. There is this thing called values, and the values basically allows me to determine how these guys are going to labelize. Now, if I put something else in there, like let's grab, hypothetically speaking, this shipped via company and throw it back in there, then you can see that I've got federal shipping and the same thing, the same comment that you expect to see. I'm going to take ship via company out of there. I'm just going to use this data. And in fact, I don't really want to show the commissions at this point because I'm going to show a graph of the individual salesperson's performance across all of the shipping methods that we have. This is just for Canada, mind you, because right now I'm filtering on everything. I'm going to say filter on all because I want to see the entire world's performance against this. Buchanan's numbers jump up a bit there. But the next thing I want to look at is this thing called a pivot chart. A pivot chart is simply a graphical representation of that same data. I'm going to show this as a bar chart just to sort of mimic the same structure that I had down here. When I do a bar chart, I'm just going to say, okay, so here is the chart form of that same table. Just like any other chart, this allows me to very quickly visualize the relative strength of each of these salespersons. Now I can make this as big or as small as I want it to be. And generally speaking, I could also move it to other locations and loop around with it. But the pivot portion of the pivot chart, notice that I do have the capability of filtering down to a particular country. And if I filter the chart, the table will also filter itself. And similarly, if I filter the table, the chart will filter itself. So now I'm showing France down in here rather than Canada that I had originally set it for. And the order amount sum and the employee capability, I can also filter for particular employees. If I filter my table down here to just show, just show Fuller and King, compare those two guys, and that's what my chart shows. So it's a very quick way of giving yourself a chart that's as easily manipulated as the table itself. I can't change the structure or the order in which things go. I would have to go and do that from the chart itself or the table itself. So the chart gives me a way of interacting with the filters that are set on the pivot table. And the same thing is true if I don't necessarily want to show the legends. I can modify the axes in exactly the same way as I could with any other graph. And I can move this graph just like I normally could to another sheet and put it on its own chart. So let's say I put that as a new chart sheet. I have now a pivotable single chart table or single sheet chart of all of that data in there. The very last thing I wanted to show you is the concept of slicing. Slicing uses these tools called slicers. And the slicer is essentially a filter that can be applied to the entire table. So while this is showing France right now only, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the country filter off, make the table show everything. So now the table is unfiltered. It's showing me the sum of all of the orders worldwide through each of my salespeople. But I'm going to insert a slicer in here to allow me to do exactly the same thing. And the slicer is simply a little pop-up dialog that floats above your pivot tables that can be used to turn things on and off. So right now I've got a customer country, and let's put an employee slicer at the same time. So I've got both of these guys checked. I'm going to say OK, and move the slicers around so I can see what I have. Now I can expand the slicer out to show me all of my salespeople and to show me a larger portion of my countries. And if I wanted to, I could come up into the particular slicer, go up into settings and say, okay, what do I want this thing to be called? Right now I can just take country or customer out of there and call it country. I've got a display header as well, so take that out of there. I can sort it in a certain way, and I could basically organize how the table is sorted. So I can make that say country instead of customer country. And a slicer operates on the principle of displaying all of the buttons for the currently selectable areas. So for instance, if I've just chosen Argentina, you'll notice that Buchanan turns off. He's still selectable, but he indicates that there are no values for Buchanan in Argentina. If I go down to Brazil, then all of those turn back on again. So I've got Buchanan back up in the list. Down to Finland, or France, or Germany, or Ireland, you can see that Buchanan drops off the list again. So Buchanan doesn't tend to work in Ireland or Argentina, apparently. And I have Italy or Mexico or Norway. And Norway only has Davolo or That doesn't mean I can't select one. If I select Dodsworth, then the table shows me exactly what I've asked. I said, show me all of Dodsworth's orders in Sweden. Well, there aren't any. So Davolio's order in Norway, that shows up. And I can even use this to indicate where the sales were done. So Davolio has no orders for anything but Norway. You'll notice that all these other guys are unselected. Unfiltered these guys. Callahan, Buchanan, Dodsworth, Fuller, King, Beverly, Notice that some of these are changing to indicate areas that they haven't sold in. Here's Suyama, doesn't do Mexico, Norway, Portugal, or Spain. No orders were done in there for Suyama. Peacock, there's just Norway dropped out. For Dodsworth, Denmark, Mexico, Norway, and Poland don't have any data for them. So the slicers not only indicate what I can select, they also indicate where sales have not occurred or things don't occur. And a slicer gives you a nice, quick way of filtering the data down to specifics. I wanted to show Canada, and let's say I wanted to show Dodsworth and King and Leverling together. I can select those using my control key, and that shows each of those three values, their total sales across the Canadian market, or through Denmark, or through Finland, or through France. Now, if I've got Denmark, one of the selections doesn't exist, rather than put it up there with a zero value, it just drops it off the table. So even though it's selected down here, you notice that it doesn't show up on the table. Now, the basics of pivot tables are exactly the same, regardless of how complex you want to make them. So all you need to do is fiddle around a little bit with what's being shown and how it's being organized down here in the same 4 grid. Once you've understood what the grids are actually doing, you can build any pivot table from any location on any piece of data as long as it makes a meaningful correlation. So that hopefully will let you get through the majority of the labs this week. Keep in mind, I'm still available via email, and I'll try to check whenever I can. I'll answer any questions you might have. And also, we have open labs next week to allow us to finish up and sort of pick up on the stuff that we might need. So anytime we have open lab availability, including Ben Whitney's Wednesday evening or Wednesday afternoon sessions at 2:30 in room SE6230, feel free to drop by and check with him, or send me an email, or add an email, or any of your other lab instructors, and hopefully we can answer any questions you might have. So that's the material for now. Check out the website for any updates